Hi everyone, today I'm potting up some seedlings and then I'm going to do a seedling update. So I'm going to take you through to the seedling room, show you how all the seedlings are doing in there and to give you an update on them, and then I'll show you where I've got all my other seedlings and how I'm looking after them. If you're new to my channel, my name's Annette and this is Cottoverdi. Welcome. We garden here in South Buckinghamshire in the UK, which is equivalent to a zone 8B or 9A. So I'm just going to get cracking with potting on seedlings. The first things I'm putting on are this bellis. A bellis is a really low growing plant with sort of little button like flowers, and I'm growing a variety called Tasso Strawberries and Cream, and these definitely need putting on. I've got 2 plants in most of the cells, so probably everything I sowed germinated, which is fantastic, and I'm going to keep them all because I really want these flowers. For putting on, I use exactly the same compost I used for sowing. So it's the multi-purpose peat-free compost, and there's a link to it below in the description if you'd like to see exactly which brand I'm using. But anything that's multi-purpose and peat-free works well. And then the tools that I'm using, I use one of these, which is really handy for getting things out of little cells. It's just like a metal, I don't know what you call it, spatula, something like that. I'll put links to these in the description below just in case you're interested. This is a little spade that I find super handy, and it comes as a set of 2, but this I use this a lot. And then I have a dibber. Now any dibber will do. I like colourful ones, but you can get wooden ones. You can use a pen or your finger, anything you like. So those are the tools that I'm using. So if, like me, you've got more than one plant in a cell and you want to separate it, just find the natural break, which is here. So that's, I've got one on each side now, and always hold the leaves and not the stem, because the leaves can be replaced but the stems can't. And just sort of tug gently like that. And then we want to plant them at the same height that they were at before. Occasionally I'll plant deeper, especially if my seedlings have got leggy. And also try not to pack it in too tightly, like don't really press down too firmly. You want those little roots to have an easy life and find their way really easily. Obviously it's easier if you don't oversow like I do and you just sow one seed into each cell, then you don't have to go to the trouble of splitting them. You could also, rather than trying to separate the roots, you could just snip off the one you don't want and then just plant up one from each cell and just plant that cell whole, and it's much easier that way. Once they're all potted up, they need a really good water in, and at this stage, when they're big enough to be potted up, when I've potted them up, I overhead water them. When I'm feeding them, I tend to bottom water them, so I'll sit them in a tray of food. But for the situation here where I've potted them up, I overhead water them just to make sure that I've filled each pot sufficiently well. So I'm going to overhead water them, and then they're going to go back into my seed starting room just for a few days, and then I will start bringing them outside with all the others. Now I'm going to show you what I do with my snapdragons, because some of my snapdragons get kind of leggy. They're just a little bit tall, and so I'm going to show you how I deal with these, and I do exactly the same thing with my cosmos. I haven't sown my cosmos yet, that's going to happen this week, but when I pot on my cosmos I do exactly what I'm going to show you now. So what I do is I put a little bit of soil in the bottom, and then I put the whole snapdragon right up to, well, as far as the first true leaves. So I tend to bury the seed leaves if I've got enough space, and I plant right up the stem. So the root ball is right down at the bottom now, and this looks like a good little seedling. This is Madam Butterfly Cherry Bronze, and you can see that I've got some empty cells and some that have only just germinated, but I don't have the patience to wait for the rest. So I've got 4 snapdragons in this one cell here. I'm going to try and separate them without damaging anything. I'd like to keep them all. So you can see the seed leaves are below the top of this pot, and I'm just burying the whole stem. And the snapdragon doesn't need its seed leaves anymore. You'll see that for some of them I've used bigger pots, and the reason I don't put them all into a big pot is because when they're really small you stand the chance of overwatering them, and then they could get damping off, which is a horrible thing where they just wilt and die and the stem just rots. So it's better to put them in a reasonable sized pot rather than something that's too big. If I'd put these ones into the really big pot, there'd just be too much moist soil around the roots, and it's just not good for them. So I try to always put them into an appropriately sized pot. Right, now that I've shown you how I pot things up, let's go and take a look at all the seedlings. This is Penstemon strictus, and I sowed these on the 9th of January, and I've only had 1 seedling germinate, which is really disappointing. I am waiting patiently for the others, and in fact this one's just not growing very much. I may pot it on in the near future, try and give it some fresh compost. I don't want to feed these trays, they've already got a bit of green algae on the top, and I don't want to feed something that's just a seed. So if I put this one on, I can feed it and then leave these and just see if anything else germinates. Okay, so we're in the seed starting room now, and I'm going to go through shelf by shelf what's going on. The lights will possibly be off if I see that it starts flashing on the screen. I'll just turn all the lights off, but they're on at the moment. They don't seem to be flashing, which is good. So normally I have the lights on, they're on for 16 hours a day, they're on timer switches, and I have a fan blowing, which I've also turned off because that helps to strengthen the stems and sort of get them used to maybe being hardened off. It's good for them anyway. So here on the top shelf, these are the larkspur. I've got 3 trays of larkspur, and they're all at various different stages of germination. Let me show you how they're doing. They look like they're on heat mats, but they're not, because I just leave the heat mats here and turn them on when I need them, but larkspur don't need the heat mats. So this is what's happening. I've got very sporadic germination on my larkspur. I sowed these on the 28th of February, and you can see that some are doing better than others. So I've got more germination on the exquisite white, no germination yet on the icy mix. And this is why I like to have everything in separate trays, because then when I feel like something's germinated enough, I can take it out and just leave the others where they are, rather than previously when I sowed everything in one big tray, it was very difficult to look after the different varieties. So this one, I mean, I might take this one out tomorrow. I'm just going to leave it with the dome on because it really helps to keep the compost moist, and that is the best way to get your seeds to germinate. And I've got a very similar situation with this lot where I've got no germination, and then some germination, no germination, some germination. And that's, you know, that's pretty standard. If you're new to sowing seeds, then that's not unusual. I'm not concerned about that. It's when things have been there for like 2 months that I'm like, okay, I've been that. And then this is my final tray of larkspur, and you'll see that I've taken one out because everything had germinated. So these are the ones that are left, and you know, we've had a little bit of germination. I'd just like to try and get a bit more before I remove the dome. So then we move on to things that I need to pot up. So this is more stuff that I need to pot up, which are my straw flowers. So these have all germinated, and I'm just growing them on a little bit before I pot them up. You'll see that some cells are empty, but then other cells I've got 2. So that's more than enough. These are raspberry rose, and then I've got king orange straw flowers, and then this is silvery rose, and they definitely need potting on. If you leave them too long in the cells, it really stunts the growth. So it is best to pot them on as soon as you can. So I shall be doing that in the next few days. And then the last thing at the back here is my Rebecca Irish eyes. I mean, they look tiny. You wouldn't believe that you'd get flowers from that this year, but we will get flowers. And I had pretty good germination, I'd say, on those. So I'm just waiting for them to get a little bit bigger. They don't have any true leaves yet. They're still the seed leaves. So once they've got some proper true leaves on them and they're a little bit bigger and I can manage them, I will be potting those up. And then we're moving over to this side. So this is Halictorum. It's called Goliath Rose Red. So it's a bit like a straw flower or an everlasting flower. And these germinated super fast and they've done really well. And they're growing fast and they're self-branching. So I haven't pinched these at all. They're just branching on their own. Can you see they're branching? So I don't know whether I'm supposed to pinch them. If somebody knows whether I should pinch them, let me know. But they seem to be branching on their own. I will be starting to put these outside, and I'll show you where all the other seedlings have gone that I've got outside. And I'm going to start moving these outside because I think they can probably manage it. We're going to have really nice warm weather in the next few days. I don't think our last frost is over, but these can go outside during the day. The other things that I'm babying along are my Cabea. Now, Cabea is a cup and saucer vine and it's growing really fast. I'm probably going to pinch this in the next few days. So I only managed, out of all the Cabea seeds I sowed, I only managed to germinate 3. I don't know why. I've never had such poor germination in my life. I didn't manage to germinate any of the white ones. I've only got purple ones, which is a bit disappointing, but I don't mind. I've got so much other stuff going on in the garden that 3 is probably all I can manage. And the Cabea are fairly tender, so I'm not going to be putting those out anytime soon. I'm going to wait until it properly warms up. So I should just baby them along in here, and I think that's why I'll also pinch them. Not only does it help, if you pinch them, it will help the branch, but also it will stop them climbing up on my shelving. So this is the other larkspur that I've taken out of the dome, and you can see how many have germinated. So some have only just germinated. There's one tiny one in there, but this is Splish Splash, which I think is a floret or Johnny's. I can't remember, but yeah, these are my first full tray of larkspur to germinate. These are all my Melope. This is the first year where I've had really poor germination on Melope Vulcan. I'm going to be resowing those in the next few days because I love Vulcan. It's such a bright colour, so I want more. But I've had really mediocre germination on the Melope this year, so I don't know whether maybe my seeds are just a bit too old. Although, having said that, this one here that I was super excited about, and this is fresh seed. It's called Pale Pink. This is very fresh seed, and I've only managed to germinate 2. So I'm keeping it moist on the surface in case more germinate in the next few days. So these weren't in my freezer because I received them and sowed them straight away, whereas all the others were in my freezer. So that could be why these have had such poor germination. Maybe I'll have better luck next year because they're currently in my freezer now, and that is supposed to help with germination rates. The other thing I've got here, you'll see I keep little sticky traps on to monitor the fungus gnat situation. It's not too bad at the moment. There's one little fungus gnat on there. This is a snapdragon called Avignon Pink. So when I potted up my Avignon pink snapdragons. There were loads of little babies and I put them in here, so I just replanted them and they're just growing on. So I'll have more Avignon pink, which is good. This is Schizanthus. This is Schizanthus Dr. Badger's mix, and you can see that some are just only germinating now. So again, I spritz the surface with water to keep everything moist in case I get more germinating. Some germinated a little while ago, but these germinated so much slower than the Angel Wings mix, which I potted up weeks and weeks ago, and I'll show you those in a second. But I don't know why Dr. Badger's mix took so long, but it's good that I've got some here and I'll be able to compare the two varieties this year. Now we're going to go down a row here. You'll see that I've got a little sticky fungus gnat trap on every single row. So these are some of my status. These three here are status, and they're growing really well. I do need to separate them and probably pot them up in the near future. And this is my Linaria Northern Lights, and that germinated really well and really quickly. And those, for some reason, they're just a little bit leggy, and I'm not sure why. And then at the back here, I've just got another whole tray of status. And then I've got some of the snaps that I have potted on. So these are snaps that I potted on, last week or a week ago. So I've got Madam Butterfly Pink. This is Costa Silva. And these are I've got two campanulas. My campanula germination rate was absolutely appalling this year. So I've got two Champion Rose campanulas here. And this is why I label every single cell, because I just mix and match things just to save on space. So I'm just sort of filling in gaps, and I need to have each little pot labeled, otherwise I'm going to get really confused. This is Potomac Ivory White, and I've potted all of those on. One row further down, this is Costa Silva. These are Mini Butterfly Sunset. These are new to me this year. These are really short snapdragons, and they're doing really well. And then these are my Potomac Lavender. These are still on heat mats. These are taking forever to germinate. So I've got the Pink Poker Status, nothing has germinated. I've got my Euphorbia Snowtop, nothing's germinated. And I've got Buplurum that haven't germinated. Now I know loads of people have got tricks and ways to get this to germinate. I keep my seed in the freezer, and I often don't have a problem with that, but perhaps I should use the paper towel method for the Buplurum in future, because I think this is the second year that I've had rubbish germination on my Buplurum. We've still got time. Some of these take 14 to 21 days to germinate, so and some of them are just really erratic. But I would like faster germination, wouldn't we all? When did I sow these? I sowed them all at the same time, 6th of March. So what is that? That's almost 2 weeks ago. Yeah, nothing yet. And then the other tray that is still on the heat mat are my Scabiosa. So everything's just coming up really slowly. This is Beaujolais Bonnets, and that's doing fairly well. And this is Perfection Blue. This is the Hardy Perennial, and I've got a few coming up there. Burgundy Bow and Merlot Red, I don't have anything germinating yet. I, again, don't remember having massive problems with Scabiosa or pincushion flowers in the past. I know it's a little bit erratic, but I would have expected a bit more. Again, these were sown on the 6th of March. This is probably one of my mistakes. Now, I made notes last year when I grew Vicaria, and on my notes I said it grows really fast. Sure enough, this is what happens. So I don't know whether this is just something that I should sow outside directly in the ground, because whenever I sow it into cell trays, it does this. Did exactly the same thing last year. It just shoots up really fast. It shoots up a really long stem before it's even created the seed leaves. And you can see some of the seed pods are still on there. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong here. If anybody knows what I'm doing wrong with Vicaria and whether maybe I should just direct sow it outside, let me know. This is Penstemon Chocolate Drop. For some reason, all the other penstemons I've potted on, I'll show you those in a minute, but penstemon chocolate drop was just a lot slower. But I have got quite a few little seedlings, so I shall be potting those up in the next few days. Certainly the bigger ones could definitely do with potting up. All the rest of these seeds down here are poppies. So I've got lilac lady, literally 2 giganteums. So I've got one here and then one tiny one here. And then I have these. Now, yes, I've definitely oversown. So over here we have bowling ball, which will be another really big seed head. I've got black single. And I thought the seeds were so old that nothing would germinate, and they've really germinated well. This one is double raspberry blush. This one's double raspberry blush. I did not oversow those. And then this one is Lauren's grape. This is a super exciting tray. So these are penstemon and I think campanula. So at the front here I've got twizzle purple penstemon, and at the back I've got twizzle white. And then the big pots in here are campanula, and this is campanula medium white. So these also are things that I can put outside now and start hardening off. They don't need to be in the seed room anymore. I potted them up maybe 2 weeks ago, so I think the root balls are sufficiently large enough to be able to handle going outside. And then these I'm super excited about, and I don't know whether it was just luck of the draw or what it was, but these are penstemon twizzle coral, which I fell in love with last year, and look how many germinated. So many more germinated than the purple or the white. So these also can go outside. These are hardy perennials, and I definitely potted them up at least 2 weeks ago. So I think they're definitely going outside. Here are the other schizanthus. This is schizanthus angel wings, and I have 2 trays like this. Now these, although they look quite big, I'm not putting these outside yet, not until they get a little bit larger, because these are, you know, annuals and they're not particularly hardy, so I need to keep them warm and protected, but they're going to be glorious. If you don't know schizanthus, it is poor man's orchid, and they really do look like little baby orchids, and they're so colourful. And on the very bottom shelf, I've got more snapdragons. This is Madame Butterfly Red. And this is one of my favourite snapdragons. This is Potomac Royal. I might start hardening these off. These are reaching for the sky. I'm not sure why, because they're definitely under the same lights as all the others. And then the other things that I've got at the bottom are all my ranunculus. So these are the butterfly ranunculus that I potted up. And these trays are a little bit mixed, because this tray is all the ones that have just started sprouting. So they need a little water, and then they can go outside. And I will start keeping them in my cold frames, because they prefer the cold. They don't want to be sitting here in a slightly warmer room. The heating's not on in here, but it is slightly warmer, especially on a day like today with the sun streaming in. But they go in this tray when you can see sprouts on them. And then I've got 2 trays like this, where we're only just starting to see tiny little cracks in the surface of the compost, which means that sprouts are coming out. I can see one here. So they're just starting to, oh, what am I doing? They're just starting. So they all take, you know, differing amounts of time, but they're all waking up. Can't wait for ranunculus season. So that's everything here in the seed starting room, apart from the dahlias, and there are some dahlias waking up. Let me show you. So we've got Daisy Duke just waking up. You can see little shoots starting there. This is Penhill Watermelon, and I can see a little eye on this one. Then Summit Festival has got a little eye, and there's another Daisy Duke with eyes on it. So this is the room where I'm starting all my dahlias. So I've still got loads that I need to pot up, and I really want to get those done in the next few days. But they're all just sitting in here, just exactly how I've showed you in previous videos. I just water them in, and then they sit in this room until they wake up. Once they've got little shoots on them, then I start taking them outside during the day. So now I'm going to show you where I harden everything off, and talk you through how I'm looking after the things that are outside already. So this is where everything sits during the day whilst it's hardening off, just basking in the sunshine on the patio. So let me talk you through what we've got here. I had brilliant germination on my sweet peas this year. So these are all the sweet peas. I've got King's Ransom, Monarch's Diamond, and Juliet. And I put 3 seeds into each 9-inch pot, and all 3 germinated in every single one, which I find is astonishing. That's never happened to me before. They were very fresh seeds though, so maybe that's why. And I'm super excited about having these sweet peas this year. Then this is my Orlea. These possibly need bumping up to a 9cm 3-inch pot. I imagine that, yeah, I can see roots coming out of the bottom. So they've been in here a little while. Now last year when they were this size, I got really excited and planted my Orlea outside because it is quite hardy. But every single one of them got eaten by slugs. I'm not doing that this year. I'm not planting them out until they're bigger. And until we've used the nematodes. So we've got nematodes for the slugs, and we'll probably be using that this weekend. These are the Lunaria, or Honesty, and I've got some purple and some white, and these are definitely big enough to go outside, but it's exactly the same situation where, because this is from the cabbage family, the slugs and snails love these. So I don't want to put these out yet. So I'm just looking after them, I'm babying them a little bit, but they live outside all day long, in the cold and the rain. So they are sort of getting fairly decent treatment, but they probably would much rather be in the ground. I just don't, you know, when you go to all the trouble of sowing stuff, you don't want it to get eaten. So I'm protecting them for a little bit longer. So this tray has a story. So out of all the yarrow or achillea I sowed, this is the only summer berries that germinated. I sowed another variety, I think it was lilac shades or something like that. Nothing germinated. I've binned that whole tray. It just shouldn't take that long to germinate. I don't know what I did wrong this year, and I can't be bothered to try and sow any more this year. We'll try again next year. This is a Lunaria called Chedglow. Look at the mottled leaves. They've kind of got like purpley spots on them. I've got 2 of those, so 2 Chedglow germinated. There is a Lunaria that is hardy, and I can't remember what it's called, but none of those germinated at all, so I binned those. And then at the back of this tray, this is Dorcas carota, so wild carrot, and I've got 3 trays of Dorcas. I mean, they're not whole trays. This one is called Dara, lovely and pinky purpley and white flowers, and this is one called Purple Kisses. I haven't grown Purple Kisses before, but I got loads of those to germinate, and they're super healthy. I've also gone a little bit crazy with Ami this year. I have 4 trays of Ami. I mean, I don't know where all these plants are going. This is 1 tray of just plain old Ami Magus. And then I also sowed one called Casablanca. I mean, so far it looks exactly the same. So it'd be interesting to see how these flowers differ from Ami Magus. And then these have got a very different sort of leaf to them, foliage. So this one is Graceland, and this one is Queen of Africa. This is just 1 seed that germinated, and this is Campanula latifolia alba. It is a hardy perennial, and it probably needs potting up into a larger pot, because I potted it up into this ages and ages ago, probably maybe a month ago, but only 1 seed germinated, which is really annoying. Then I have 2 trays of snaps that are already outside here, mostly because they were getting just a bit leggy, so they were screaming out for more light, I think. So I've got Avignon Pink at the back. These are the ones that I've got extras of in the seed starting room. I have Madame Butterfly Red, and I have some Costa Silva in this tray. And then I've got 4 Potomac Lavender and 4 Madame Butterfly Pink. And this is the last tray out here, and these are the ranunculus that sprouted first. So as soon as they sprout, and I showed you the size they were in the seed starting room, as soon as they're that size, I bring them outside and they spend the days outside. And then with this tray, because it's been outside for about a week now during the day, and then I bring them in at night, I'm going to put this tray in my cold frames now, and it can stay outside all the time and just be exposed to the elements. And then I will get them in the ground pretty soon. So you may be wondering, you know, how do I bring everything in and out, and isn't it a lot of trouble? Well, it is, but ever since I got my trolley on wheels, it's no longer such a chore. And we use this trolley here. Let me see if I can get it in the shot. We use this trolley, and wheel everything in and out on the trolley, so it's really easy. I actually have a couple of these trolleys because I do the same thing with my dahlias when they start coming out, so I just need somewhere to put them. Now obviously if I had a greenhouse, life would be very different, but I don't have one. I have little plastic zippy greenhouses, but they're just not the same. So this is how I manage. We wheel these in and out of the kitchen or our glazed corridor. The glazed corridor actually is really handy because on days when it's pouring with rain, we can leave them in there because the roof is glass. So it's a little bit like a greenhouse, but it does drive my husband crazy. So I try not to do that too often. But this is what I use to bring everything in and out, and it saves my back and saves me a lot of trouble. So I think I've covered all the questions that people might have, but if you've got questions still, then do ask in the comments and I'll get back to you. So just write to me, and I always try to answer every single comment at the moment. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.